So hello everyone, and welcome back to Nicole Myths, Astrology and Tarot. Today I am going over the new moon eclipse in Sagittarius. It is December 4th, 2021. The official new moon peak was at 2:42 this morning, EDT, right? Eastern Standard Time. Big things going on. I have a whole thing charted out in notes and shit on the back, so bear with, guys, because there's a lot actually going on in connection to this new moon. Okay, the sun and the moon are at 12 degrees 21 minutes Sagittarius. Okay, 1212 is a big number for me. The fact that the minutes are mirroring creates palindromes, right? 1221 is 1221, which reverses 12221, adds up to sixes, right? Which in turn also together add up to 12. A lot of numerology there. This is a huge initiation, a huge balancing within the self, a chance to create stability from within the self in the vibration of unconditional love. Towards an ascension, right? Towards ascension energy within the self. This is double down with a few different aspects that are not as well known, that I'm going to go over a little bit today, because there's noviles, quintiles, and septiles, and a biquintile, and I'm going to explain a little bit about what they mean towards the end. But when it comes to this energy, all right, there's ultimately 10 different things that connect and resolve back to the sun and moon. Because the sun and moon itself, its only true tight aspect is a quincunx to Uranus, who is still retrograding in Taurus. Now, Sagittarius, the beautiful aspect of Sag, the light aspect, right? We're talking about the sun and Sag. The light aspect of Sag is that it can see the long-term vision, the beautiful vision. Sagittarius is the sign of the visionary and the prophet, or self-fulfilling prophecy as an optimist, okay? It's the light of Sagittarius. The moon, or the shadow, especially because it's a new moon, it's a dark moon, the dark side of the moon when it comes to Sagittarian energy is quitting and walking away. Essentially a flag of surrender. That this is paired with the light of the sun. It is going to benefit many of us to walk away from visions that are no longer serving us, from low vibrations that are no longer serving us, from people, places, and things that are not aligning with the future vision that we're holding, right? This quincunx to Uranus and Taurus, retrograding, it is the undoing of 3D world things in order to expand the reality, okay? In order to grow the reality or see the reality differently from a different perspective, okay? It can create quick, fast changes and build forward with a lot of momentum, okay? There's a lot of very positive aspects to the undoing of things in order to create new things, which is a big deal with this new moon energy. Now, Uranus and Taurus, right, that's quincunxing the sun and moon, is sextiling Hades, which is right by Kronos. Hades and Kronos are in Cancer, respectively at 11 and 13 degrees. This is a positive aspect, right? Sextiles are positive aspects towards undoing the reality of the self, where the self sabotages and tries to hold on to control. So it would benefit our reality to let go of control, to let go of control of the reality, okay? Initially going with flow, maintaining control of the self, right? Cancerian energy is loving and nurturing the self while in the flow, being able to transform the self and loving the self through the transformation in the flow of things, but not trying to control the flow, right? This is challenged by Jupiter in Aquarius. This energy, this Kronos and Hades retrograding in Cancer energy is challenged. It's a sesquiquadrate to Jupiter in Aquarius. It may be difficult, right? Challenges. I mean, sesquiquadrates are essentially a square and a half. So they do feel like a challenge and a half. It may be really challenging to see the why or the higher perspective through things like, or experiences like this. Like, for example, I'll give a great example. I have been recording the moon events, right? New moons and full moons. I've been recording those events live for the last 2 years in one full video with timestamps. And the other day I went to go do my twin flame secret code name reading, and the YouTube app crashed. So I had to restart it after the first secret code name. Started the second secret code name from there to continue, and it crashed again after the second secret code name. So they essentially each got their own videos. And I originally was frustrated, right? The challenge of the self, I was originally frustrated because it's not the way I do things, but I ended up recording them each individually instead, and ended up really liking the idea of it. And so I went with the flow, and I'm going to continue doing it for all of my moon events and all of my twin flame secret code name events. They are personal readings that are guised under a secret code name so that everybody can resonate to them if they're drawn to them and get those messages, right? And now I'm going to continue doing them individually instead. Just like that. It just worked out better, right? And there's a higher reason. Like, I didn't understand the why YouTube was crashing out on me. I didn't understand the why. I even got a few messages from people like, oh, you know, like, Spirit doesn't want you to talk about these messages. Something doesn't want you to get these messages out. But I don't really think that way. Like, if something is going to thwart me, it's in my highest good. Like, there's nothing actually ever working against me, because all there is Spirit, and Spirit's working in the highest good. So I didn't understand why YouTube was crashing until I ultimately got through about 70% of the secret code names and was just like, you know what? I actually really like this. I like that they're individual. So seeing the higher perspective may be a challenge at first in order to redirect the self and the reality, but it's ultimately beneficial, which is exactly what Jupiter is. It's a beneficial, lucky stroke of planetary alignment, right? And it's actually in semi-sextile with Pluto in Capricorn, which is definitively ending how we direct our choices in our lives, right? It's benefiting the transformation of how we do things. It's not just changing the reality. It's not just benefiting how we love ourselves and the collective, how we put our nurturance out there, our love out there, but it's ultimately allowing that transformation to show up in how we're doing things, right? How we're dictating our path forward. Pluto is making a couple aspects. It has that semi-sextile to Jupiter, but it also has a semi-square to Vesta in Venus, which is not far from this whole sun and moon, new moon and Sag eclipse energy. Okay, it's just 3 degrees away. Vesta's at 9 degrees Sag. And Vesta has a couple different things coming from it. It's connected to Eris, it's connected to Saturn, and it's connected to Pluto. All right, so there's multiple things coming in around Eris, well within the orb of this full, new moon and sun, full-blown energy, right? This eclipse energy. Pluto's semi-squaring Vesta and Sagittarius is a reminder that if you want to transform, you can't necessarily do it alone. Meaning, there is more than one person in play, whether they are legitimately helping you and you're setting up kind of a team type scenario, or you're gathering ideas from sources outside of yourself and people outside of yourself and taking that information and being inspired by it, right? This is not a one mind show. This is a multi-mind realm where we're creating in a very different way. I mean, Vesta is sesquiquadrate, right? That challenge and a half, that square and a half, to Eris in Aries. And Eris is retrograding. It's the undoing of mischief and mayhem from within the own mind. When you pull in ideas and information from other people, when you work with other people and have to be a team, and you can't just call your own shots, and you have to kind of talk with others, and you have to negotiate, and you have to find solutions, right? Solution-oriented mindset that is dictated by multiple minds agreeing, right? It's actually undoing the mischief and mayhem wiring inside the mind. It's helping the old way of thinking, the old way of perceiving to come undone, right? It's helping that come undone. Now, Eris is quincunx on Mars and Scorpio. So there's a lot of deep subconscious passions there that are itching to come through, because it's not about my way or the highway. It's about passion. So the undoing or the rewiring of the mind ultimately is to help you get in touch with your passion. Mind you, each of these different things are coming off connections that started with the sun and moon. Being able to manifest and be the prophet of your highest good vision, right? The manifester of your highest good vision, that what you think about, you can bring about, what you see, you can achieve. It's this mentality where self-fulfilling prophecy is to benefit you. The undoing or rewiring of the mind in order to bring really deep and or buried passions of the soul to the surface, right? We're not even talking about who you think you are consciously. We're talking about soul passion and soul fire that's coming up from the deep. It's a reignition that you might not anticipate or see coming. It's a lot of fire and a lot of momentum, because Mars in Scorpio, for Scorpio being a water sign, Mars was one of the original rulers of Scorpio before Pluto came into the picture. And so there's this real fiery underbelly of this scorpionic energy that's tuning in with the sun and moon this way, especially because it's countering this adverse mind of Eris and Aries. Mars is sesquiquadrate, right? Square and a half, challenge and a half. It's sesquiquadrate, Chiron retrograding in Aries. Mars in Scorpio, the fact that it has this key type energy to rewiring Eris, and this fuck off energy towards Chiron, which is the martyr. It's working harder instead of smarter, right? Chiron works harder instead of smarter. It's a martyr of the mind. It's where we're overthinking. It's where we're putting too much on how we think things should be versus the way the soul feels, senses, is driven to be. It is literally a silencing of the martyr complex coming from Mars in Scorpio. It's almost as if Mars is looking at Chiron like, listen, bud, I love you, but you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. There's a better way, bruh. Like, that's just where Mars is. Like, it's in this position where it sees differently because its perspective is different. It's at the bottom, right? The subconscious of Scorpio. It's at the bottom of the ocean, looking up towards the surface and seeing all this glimmering light. And it's like, Chiron, don't you get it? Don't you get it? Like you couldn't see the same glimmer from the air. There's a special perspective that Mars is getting from the bottom of the ocean. It's seeing how all of the shadows move around. It's seeing how the light reflects off things. It's understanding. See, Mars in Scorpio is understanding how the shadows are responding to each other. What shadows run from other shadows, what other shadows prey on certain shadows. Like it's seeing a bigger picture, and the whole backdrop is light. Mars is telling Mars is telling Chiron that if it really wants to be the best, if it really wants to do best, if it wants to be there for everyone at its best, if it wants everyone to succeed and be at their best, then it has to see things from the perspective that Mars is essentially seeing things at. Chiron is being one of the fish on the surface, or a seagull on the surface, and has no clue what the fuck is going down under there. It's like a gull sitting on the surface and the shark's coming right up to fucking chomp the shit out of it, and the seagull don't know what the fuck is going on. Where Mars can see it happening. It can see the little seagull's feet on the surface, and it can see the shark going, and it's like, I know what's happening. Like Mars knows what's going on. From a very deep perspective coming out of Scorpio. Okay. Chiron, retrograde in Aries, is sextiling on Saturn in Aquarius. Saturn in Aquarius, which has that sextile to Vesta, right? Vesta is, or Saturn rather, is sextiling between both Chiron and Vesta. Saturn is sextiling between the two of them. They're in a loose trine. A loose meaning it's more than 1 degree. It's not a tight trine. Tight aspects are within 1 degree or less. Okay, but they're essentially in trine. Saturn is being this order as it is to help the self accept help and perspectives from others. Because that Vesta energy, like I said, was being a multi-minded, multi-perspective, multi-inspirational sources type energy, getting ideas, right? And formulating a new projection, right? A new prophecy that it once fulfilled to create and manifest with this sun moon. Chiron being taught you're working harder, not smarter. It's time to get you smarter so that you're not working as hard. Same results or better, applying different types of effort so that you're working smarter and not harder. If the seagull knew that Mars was on its side down there, it might not land right there on the ocean water. It might fly a mile out before it lands, just so it has a little break time and it's not right above a shark. Like, hey, it's not safe to land there. You might want to wait just a little bit, fly that way, and you'll be able to safely land over there. There's not a shark for at least a mile. You got some time before you could take off and go wherever. Oh, by the way, there's a school of fish over there. You might catch something and fill your belly. Saturn is essentially opening up the self to appreciate guidance and or inspiration and or knowledge and or perspective from other people. This is what Saturn's bringing to the table. It's helping, okay? It's helping all of these energies, right? Because if we started at the sun and moon and we ended at Saturn, who connects back into Vesta, who is right by the sun and moon, right? Well within orb, because the sun has a 10-degree orb and it's within 3 degrees of the sun. So know that all the way down the line, all 10 steps later, Saturn is behind this beautiful creative energy that we're getting from this sun and moon to leave things that are no longer serving us and embrace new things and new ways and new methods to help progress us forward for our highest good. We just need to be open-minded, right? Open-minded and accepting, which is a lot of what this Aquarian energy is doing. Jupiter is a big player in there. It's also in Aquarius. The signs, Sag and Aquarius, sextile each other in general. They're benefiting each other. It's where it starts and ends. Other things going on that are not directly connected to the sun and moon, but relatively close to it, for one, is Mercury, because Mercury is also within 3 degrees of the sun and moon at 15 degrees Sag. So you got Vesta at 9 degrees, sun and moon at 12, and then you have Mercury at 15. Mercury's opposing Lilith in Gemini, and Lilith is retrograding. Mercury in Sag talks about big ideas. It talks a lot of inspiration. It's also extremely blunt about what is being communicated. It's not necessarily short and to the point. Sag can be wordy. But it definitely has this vibe of, you got to tell it like it is. Or how it is never going to be acknowledged. And if it's never acknowledged, it can never be fixed. Whatever needs to be corrected, right? Whatever needs to be corrected within the self, within the perspective, within the vision. Lilith retrograding is about self-discovery of the facts. Because these two energies are opposing each other, okay? Because they're opposing each other. Lilith is at 14 degrees in Gemini with Mercury at 15 degrees in Sag. Because they're opposing, those who are having a hard time discovering their self and the reality that they've created with the methods that they've been using to create it, right? That they're having a hard time seeing it for what it is. They might be very resistant to this blunt, I see how things are going to turn out if you keep going down this path type of communication coming from Mercury and Sag. It's essentially, if you keep going, Mercury and Sag, if you keep going down this path the way you're going, it's not going to work out for you. You can't keep going down this path. It's not going to work out. Not the way you want. Not the way you envision. Not the way you see yourself in your best daydreams. If you keep going on like this, you're never going to hit the dream. Lilith retrograding in Mars is going to huff and puff and resist. It just is. It'll ultimately buckle and listen, or at least accept that this Mercury and Sag might be right. It doesn't want to believe it's right. But there's this kind of feeling that senses that fighting this communication would absolutely be wrong, though. Like, it isn't the way, like, to stay stubborn and self-sabotage and abandon the self, abandon the vision, abandon the future dream becoming a reality. It can't deny that niggling feeling. It has a feeling it could potentially lose everything it was building and creating. That it might have to give it up completely for a time in order to rebuild and reestablish. Like the whole foundation might be taken out. It might have to be given up on, right? You might have to quit Sagittarian energy if that Geminian Lilith cannot get a grasp on what the Mercury and Sag is saying. Ceres is not far off from where Lilith is retrograding right into. Ceres is at 3 degrees, Gem, also retrograding. Ceres, if you think about mythology and things like that, it's Persephone's mother, Demeter. It's essentially a broken heart chakra energy, where everything you loved and everything that you nurtured for so long goes away. And it's terrible. It's a terrible feeling. We're stuck. We're lost in a world where we don't want to create anything. It's like seasonal depression at its finest. Okay? Only it's cyclical, right? It's not just a season that you're going to be down and out. It might be a season of your life, not just an actual season, okay? Because there's these archetypal energies are metaphorical. Be aware of that. There's also a T-square going on between Venus, who is at 22 degrees Capricorn. It's squaring Eris retrograde in Aries, and it's squaring Zeus in Libra. And Eris and Zeus are opposed to each other. The issue that this causes, because Fortune's door is not far away from Zeus in Libra. At the exact moment this new moon went off at its peak, Fortune was at 18 degrees by Zeus. There's huge favoring to do things from a balanced place within the self that is considerate of the self and others. You can't just consider your fucking self and no one else. It's going to hit you in the face. You can't consider everybody else and forget that you're important. It's going to hit you in the face. But if you can find a balance within the self that considers both you and others equally, that one is not getting the short end of the stick, that you can find a solution, everything that that energy stands for is going to completely shut the false wiring in the mind down. And it's a challenge to love what you do. It is. Venus in Capricorn, it's a challenge to love what you do, to approve of the self, to love and approve of the self and have gratitude for the self, that you weren't so impulsive in your old wiring that you would just run on autopilot, but that you would actually take the time to find a win-win solution and not settle for less. It's got to be a win-win or I'm not doing it. It can wait. The decision can wait. If it's not a win-win, I'm not doing it. It's being able to love your choices and love your actions, and what loving your choices and actions evolves into, what it creates, what it brings into form. When you do things that you love and approve of versus what you sacrifice and settle over. Okay. I also want to talk a little bit about Neptune, because Neptune is direct now. Neptune is direct now. Neptune, sesquiquadrate, Apollon. Our false beliefs, our illusions, are straight up attacking the soul song in the deep, that scorpionic energy. Quincunxing on Zeus, right? Loose quincunx on Zeus. It may want you to believe that things are impossible and that you can't do them. It can also, on the other side of things, push you to attempt the impossible by taking steps at a time. Understand, because Neptune is sextiling this Capricornian energy with White Moon, Estrella, and Venus, loving what you do. It is a matter of one step at a time. It is a matter of healing your choices. It is a matter of understanding and appreciating and accepting that good karma is yours to be had should you choose it. Good karma is yours to be had should you choose it. okay? Neptune is tricky. Neptune is tricky because it's always going one way or the other. Just like our souls always feel pulled in two directions. This is what I want to do and this is what I should do. Well, this is what's good for me and this is what's good for them. Where do they meet in the middle? Where do they meet in the middle that keeps them connected? What is the cord that connects the two? That's what we gotta find. That's what we gotta find with this new moon eclipse in Sag. Neptune is still very much in its post-shadow period, right? Just going direct. We're still processing how to make good use of the clarity in soul that we've gotten. How do we move forward, right? How do we utilize it to our advantage? All of the deep stuff we've learned about the self recently, as Neptune was going direct, where it was retrograding and going direct, how do we make use of it all? Because I don't know about you, but November was fucking nuts. As far as like inner work and inner recognition, inner healing, deep soul stuff, like November was fucking nuts. There's a reason why the November zodiacs never went up. They will be up, I promise you. November and December I'm going to put up at the same time with each other. I'm going to do combination month readings. But it is about loving what you do and loving how things work out and not being confused. Not being confused about how things are working out, not having question marks about how things could work out because you took the time to make the best choice that aligned with your soul and your highest good and the highest good of everybody else involved. That you felt good about the choices being made instead of making a choice knowing there's question marks and not all the question marks are great. Other interesting energies going on with Neptune. There's a few. Neptune's lesser known aspects, right? Lesser known aspects. I talked about quintiles, septiles, noviles. And biquintiles. Neptune plays a role with all of these aspects. Even the sun and moon have a novile to Venus. Let me give you a brief blip on what these are. Quintiles are 72 degrees. They're 72 degree angles. If you took a 360 degree circle, which is an astrology chart, and divided it by 5, you get a quintile. A septile, if you were to take a 360 degree circle, 360 degree circle, and divided it by 7, you'd get 51.5 degrees. That's a septile. A novile is a 360 degree circle divided by 9, which is 40 degrees. Biquintiles are quintiles doubled. They go from 72 degrees to 144 degrees, okay? Quintiles are strong creative flow, opportunity for something performative, entertaining, or expressive. Biquintiles essentially double that energy. They're creative divine powers and are expressed a lot through art. This is optimistic leaning. It creates what is essentially a pentacle or divine protection, right? If there were to be quintiles all connecting and touching each other, by quintiles, it would create a pentacle, which is protection. These point to talents and fascinations with patterns, perfectionism, and a desire to build. They are solution-oriented. Quintiles and biquintiles, they are solution-oriented. Septiles, the 51.5 degrees. These alignments, these aspects are very mystical, spiritual energies. They're a finer, more subtle reality that's hidden from our own. A great example would be the divine stepping in and having YouTube crash out on me, right? It's a finer, more subtle reality that's hidden from our own. I can't understand the reality that it's working on, but I know it's affecting my reality, and it's a very spiritual, very mystical energy at work that is beyond my comprehension or understanding, right? Septiles. Noviles are an energy of perfection and or idolization and or redemption. Okay, these energies typically symbolize a marriage, but within the self, okay? Noviles can bring out the most beautiful qualities or indicates development and evolutionary growth or completions. It's related to karmic bondage and the freedom from it. Okay, and the freedom from it. Saturn is in novile with Neptune. The sun and moon in Sag are in novile with Venus. And Mercury in Sag is in novile with Pluto. The way we communicate is transforming. It's coming to completion. It's perfecting itself. The way we communicate about our vision and bringing it into form and being the director of a transformed reality is going through the evolutionary growth cycle in order to complete and free the karmic bond there. The sun and moon in Sag, our ability to manifest the reality that we love in alignment with the greatest vision is becoming, its idolization is becoming idolized in the reality. It's bringing out our most beautiful qualities in that we love what we do and are creating in what we see. Saturn in Aquarius, novile Neptune in Pisces. This is the divine order of the higher perspective meeting the soul. Understanding the soul and marrying the soul. It's that outside force that we can't necessarily see or understand. Taking a moment to touch us so that we can understand and see. It's a moment in the reality where what is divine allows you to understand it and see and acknowledge its presence. It's a marriage between this Saturn and Aquarius energy and this Neptune and Pisces energy, where the soul and the higher perspective that is divine order understand each other. Where the vision of what we want to create in our best daydreams becomes a reality that we love. Sun and moon to Venus. And that we would be able to talk about this transformation, that we would be able to share our experience of transformation with others so that they too can choose to dictate their path in alignment with this higher energy. These noviles are beautiful blessings And they're extremely freeing of the soul, especially on a deep soul scar kind of level. Like Mercury being the first planet and Pluto being the last, and them in the spectrum of things, right? Mercury being the closest to the sun and Pluto being the furthest away, that they're in novile. There is a start to finish understanding of mind versus matter and transforming. It's almost like understanding the purpose of birth and death within the self. That our old self doesn't necessarily die, but that it becomes reborn into higher thinking, a balance between fire and ice, right? Neptune is in 2 quintiles. It's quintiling Admetos, Ceres, and North Node, all retrograding in Gemini. And it's quintiling Juno in Capricorn. And Juno in Capricorn and Admetos, Ceres, and South Node in Gem are all in biquintile. Okay, they're 2 quintiles apart. Neptune in between. There is huge momentum, and I mean huge momentum, which is what quintiles do. Crazy opportunity for something expressive, strong creative flow. It's coming from the soul, okay? It is coming from the soul. It is coming from beliefs. It is coming from a depth of self that we may have been out of touch with in a long time, where we can be loyal to who we are as individuals and our growth as individuals, and how our experiences and our growths are different from other people's experiences and the way they've grown into the reality that their path is not your path and your path is not their path, and that's okay. Ancestral karma and the lack thereof is a blessing. Destiny is what we choose it to be. What we choose it to be comes from within the soul, within the self. And even though all of our souls are connected, all of our experiences learning here in this realm are what they are for a reason. You are not meant to be your parents. You're not meant to become them. You are an individual becoming yourself here. We learned ancestral karma from our parents. We learned those cycles from our parents, and we're mastering the release of them. This is a huge, huge moment where you can choose to get creative within yourself. When I say creative, it doesn't necessarily mean performing. It doesn't necessarily mean art. It doesn't necessarily mean oration. It definitely means creating your own reality. Being loyal to your own path and knowing you can create whatever the fuck you want. If it makes your heart sing, let it sing. North Node is destiny's direction. It has always been your destiny to complete old ancestral cycles and take root on your own path. Jupiter is quintiling both the sun and moon and Mercury and Sag. Mercury and Sag is biquintile Uranus retrograde in Taurus. Okay. These energies, quintile and biquintile, between Jupiter, the sun, moon, and Mercury, and Uranus. These are incredible momentous energies, flow energies, creative divine powers at play, very optimistic powers at play, very protective energies at play, helping you to create and communicate your dream in alignment with the highest good of all, so that the world itself, your own individual world, and the world in the greater scheme of things can shift. This eclipse is so fucking powerful. It's so powerful. Understand that if there was ever an alignment that would tell you that all your dreams can come true, that it's possible, that everything is possible, every healing in the world is possible, it's these alignments. These little secret hidden alignments that most astrologers don't go over or even look at to take advantage of them. If you have significant placements in your birth chart around these energies, like if you have strong Sagittarian energy around 9, 12, 15 degrees, if you have strong energy in Aquarius around 25 degrees, if you have strong Taurean energy around 11 degrees, right, give or take like a 5-degree orb minimum on these things, it's a big deal. If you have nodal energies, whether it's Sag or Gemini, right, 1 degree, Sag, 1 degree, Gemini energies in your birth chart, other planetary bodies there, like these are huge door opens for you. Huge door openings. The septiles. We have a septile from Neptune to Uranus, right? Septiles are that mystical, spiritual energy. This is the divine soul blessing and or intervening on your behalf, the divine intervention type energy on your behalf in order to shift the reality and make it better. Venus in Capricorn is septile with South Node in Sag. It's a gratitude for the past, a gratitude for the lessons learned, a gratitude for the lack of vision, the lack of sight. Because if you didn't have such a period where the sight was lacking, where you couldn't see what was going on, where you couldn't see and understand why things were happening the way they are, and all of a sudden, divine touches you and says, see now. Imagine feeling blind about your future and about life, and then all of a sudden you're touched by the divine and it says, see now. And you fucking get it. Like, all of the questions as to why things happened the way they happened are perfectly explained. Because if this didn't happen, and this didn't happen, and this didn't happen, and this didn't happen, and you weren't clueless to what was happening, you wouldn't have done this or said that. And if they knew what was going on and they weren't aware, like, none of this shit would have happened the way it did to get to this point if y'all knew what the fuck was going on and what the purpose was. But now that the purpose was achieved, Spirit says, do you get it now? Voila. It's undeniable, this energy. It is undeniable to individuals. Undeniable that there is a higher power at force working on your behalf. The universe doesn't give you obstacles. It does you favors. The universe doesn't take things out of your life as punishment. It takes things or people out of your life to give you freedom. The universe isn't trying to frustrate you. It's serving you. There is nothing done in this life that is not for your highest good and your growth in order to end karmic bondage and self-loathing. That every power the divine has and can utilize is strictly intended to work in your favor. When they say love is all around you, well, that's the divine and that's the truth. Everything the divine does, this invisible flow that is unknown or unseen to us, that is forever working in the background, is simply for us to enjoy our destiny and existence, to manifest our best potential realities, our best dreams, to manifest the highest good path, to manifest the healing of everything, so that we can coexist as souls in a reality 3D world. This whole process, this astronomical process that we've been going through, is the integration of a higher spiritual realm into a 3D realm that can coexist together so that they are not separate realms. So that we are not primal, animalistic cavemen, but functioning, feeling, soul-filled humans. That we are both spirit and soul and human flesh all at the same time coexisting together here. This alignment is a huge push towards harmony. Harmony between realms. It's the bridge between realms becoming established. If you can imagine what it looks like for a bridge to be built, first you have to build, the foundational posts, across the waterway. Then you have to build the frame. Then you have to, there's all these steps to building a bridge, and they build it one step at a time, one step at a time, one step at a time. And then finally the bridge is ready and you can cross it. And there's ever-flowing motion. And the bridge becomes a part of the two separate land masses that connects the two. This is essentially the completion of the bridge and the grand reveal, the grand opening of the bridge between your soul and the reality. If your soul was over here on this landmass and your human experience was over here on this landmass, and they were separate for the longest time, and your soul and your human self weren't figuring it the fuck out, well, the bridge just opened. The bridge just opened. It's open for business. It's connecting the two. So that how your soul functions in the reality is not foreign to you. So I hope this helps. I hope my own Mercury retrograde and Sag placement hasn't been super uber wordy, or hasn't fopped up a couple words enough that it all makes sense. So, until next time, guys, this is Grace Nicole Myths, Astrology and Tarot, signing off. I'm going to get ready to do all of the new moon in Sagittarius bullseye readings for the Secret Code Name event. I will see you soon. Bye, everyone.